John, welcome. How are you?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Thank you. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm living the dream, one day at a time.
The way we should.
Awesome. Thanks for hopping on. Would love to just start out by telling the listeners a little bit about yourself, what you do for a living, and we'll kind of kick it off there.
Sounds good. So name's John. Um, day job, day job. I do recruiting, independent recruiting. Been doing it since 2007 in Vancouver. And essentially, when my wife decided to move back to the U.S., opened up shop so I could essentially work and do it independently. Specifically focused on higher level executives within the public accounting, consulting, and advisory space. And I typically say recruiting when I'm asked what I do because that's what most people understand. But I think I shared this with you. But what I do is really the opposite of recruiting, where recruiting is a company has a need, recruiters go out and find candidates. My process begins with a candidate, specifically in the space in which I have relationships with. And so once I connect with candidates, once I get referred candidates, again, those higher level folks, figure out what they want to do, where they want to do it at, anywhere in the world, I then go out to my contacts and help these candidates find an opportunity they're looking for. So again, it's the flip side. It's the other way around. So yeah, that's what I do in a nutshell. Do it remotely. Been doing it remotely for forever. So COVID did not do much to affect my day to day.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, remote was something I transitioned into right when COVID had started, and it was obviously a very big learning curve for those of us who were used to being client facing. But man, did I learn to love it and love the freedom that comes along with it. Um,
Absolutely.
it sounds like that freedom was something that you were able to take advantage of when your wife decided that she wanted to move back to the United States. What made you, if you were remote before, what made you decide to go and transition into your own thing outside of what you were doing before?
So, okay, I guess my mistake. So when I was in Vancouver, I was working for a firm, and that was not remote.
Okay.
But in 2007, yeah, when my wife decided it was time to raise the kids American, they were born in Canada, they're dual. I said, sure, and it was not an issue for me because when it comes to the diligence to work with nobody over my shoulder or cracking the whip, so to speak, it was a non-issue for me. I worked, I needed to do what I needed to do, um, self-discipline, and so doing it on my own was an easy transition.
Where do you think that self discipline comes from? Because I definitely find times where it can be challenging to, when somebody isn't cracking the whip, not that you don't necessarily want that as the alternative, but find it challenging to make sure that you're consistently doing what you need to do every minute of the day. So, where do you think that self discipline comes from?
I'd love to say that um, my dad instilled it in me directly, but I think he instilled it in me indirectly. And what I meant by that was my dad, ever since I remember, was running his own business. So he's a licensing agent in Asia. And so what I saw growing up was him working six and a half days a week, running his company, running his business. And while he did not say, hey, you've got to do this to be successful, you got to do that, I inherently saw that, and just spending time with him at the office, even though I was just reading comics on a couch and he was working, I'm guessing that's what instilled it. But mind you, like growing up, my mom got me into swimming. I was swimming competitively, and the training was just horrible in the sense that after school you train, on the weekends you train 6 in the morning. So I'm like, you know what? I just gave that up. And so I share that because was I disciplined my entire life? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think wholly, but seeing my dad and the business he was running and the work ethic he had, I think once I got through the school part of things, once I got working, it was more of a, I just had to do it. But mind you, it also helped that I had two kids, right, to keep me in line, keep me focused, to make sure that I was providing, right. I had a nut that I had to ensure I was hitting every month. Um, so I wish there was like a clear cut answer, but there really isn't. I think it's a mixture of various experiences, people, um, and what have you.
It's fascinating how we, as parents, I say that I'm not a parent currently, but just in general, if I was a parent, we're responsible to keep our kids in line. But there are a lot of aspects
Hmm.
in life where they almost keep us in line and remind us, give us that extra push we need when we might not have it in us on the day to day. Have you experienced
100%.
that as a parent as well?
Yes. And the neat thing here is growing up without pre-kids, it's like my mind was set on certain things in life, certain ideologies, let's call it. And then once kids came into the picture, it's like, boom, everything out the window. You've got to be flexible. You're thinking about certain ideas, thoughts, situations, scenarios. All of a sudden start changing, start forming, as opposed to a black and white. All of a sudden there's now a lot more gray areas. It's my experience. But absolutely, as much as parents would like to think we are teaching, I think kids teach us a lot more than we think, for
I
sure.
completely agree. I've learned so much from, I mean, even seeing how children and how creative they are. I have a niece
Yep.
who is 3 years old, and there are moments where I just want to pull my hair out because I'm like, I just want to communicate with you. I want you to understand what I'm saying and the logic behind it, but you can't speak to them like that and expect those things of them. But then when you change the frame of, let me try and understand you and what goes on in your head and how your imagination works, it's so fascinating. And it almost makes you like envy the things that they have and the creativity they have and wonder like what part of growing up, when did that start to fade into what it is now, which is nowhere near what, I imagine it was back when I was a child.
100%. And I think too, it's as kids, right? As they always say, as kids, when they learn to walk, they fall, they stand up. Multiple times, countless times. As adults, we try something, we fail, we stop. And I think it's also that purity, if you call it that innocence of a child, of a kid that does not know any better than what it is that they desire, right? That they keep going, they keep going, they keep going. And as adults, it's like, shit, I'm going to try this. Oh, it failed. Oh, somebody said it won't work. Oh, I was made fun of. And then we stop and we pause. And now our world is a lot bigger. Decisions we make is now dependent on other individuals. Whereas children, it's like, you know what? No, I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to keep trying until I succeed. Um, and I think a lot of us lose that. But the quicker we can get back to that mentality, I think, would allow us to grow, a lot more, would allow us successes, whatever success means to you. Um, so if we can get back to that portion of thinking, I think would be very helpful for sure.
Yeah, I agree. There are a lot of challenges that come along as we go through different phases of life. One of which is the markets that we're dealing with. So I would love to, get a little bit of insight first and foremost on, you and I met through VCon at VConference. We
Yep.
actually found out we're not too far apart, just one state
Uh-huh.
away, probably like an hour and a half away, which is cool. We still have
Yep.
to link up in person soon. But
For
would love
sure.
to know a little bit about how you got into this space in the first place. Was it through Gary Vee? What has that been like so far? Would love to hear a little bit of that story.
100%. Gary V. So pre V Friends, um, you know, buddies would joke about NFTs, not negatively, but just talking about NFTs, and I knew nothing about it. I would see things on news feeds, and really, be honest, I just skip over that news about NFT this and that. I don't know much about it. Same thing with crypto, to be very transparent. But I've been following Gary for a couple of years, more from a business perspective, motivation perspective. Not that I needed motivation, but the things he was sharing about building a honey empire, about being kind and all that resonated with me as I'm in the people business, in the recruiting business, as I've worked for like one of the large auto companies here in Michigan, and did not like how HR and how some of my colleagues were handling people and their desire to grow in their career. And so everything that Gary would talk about kindness, about, yeah, treating people right, about not instilling fear as a leader because it slows companies down and all that, really resonated. So when he started talking about dropping his own NFT project months before May, I found that intriguing enough that here was somebody that I've been following. And I'll be honest, I'm not going to say I did a lot of research. You know, he says the 50 hours research. Did I do that? No. So I probably did 5 to 10 hours, being just very honest. But for me, it was, you know what? I've been listening to this guy. This guy seems legit. I had some money to throw away, so to speak, that if it didn't work out, whatever, that's what got me into it was a difference. So that was my entry into Web3 was VFriends last May.
What's kept you around?
So cliche, man, but the community, um, the excitement of being part of a potentially a revolution, but not a negative revolution, was what was very important for me. It wasn't just about the dollars, even though the more I spend time, the more I'm in Twitter Spaces, the more I'm Discord and what have you. It's like, cool, this could have tremendous financial impact. But the fact that there's a very strong positive slant to the VFriends community, more so, because that's what I'm really, really into. In terms of the technology, which again, I'm not a tech guy, I'm not a finance guy, but all of those for me had very, very positive slants on how it could help people. How Ukraine was able to raise, what, a couple million instantaneously because of crypto when the war broke out. I'm like, wow, you know, these things would have such positive effects on individuals, countries, businesses, that's what's keeping me, that's what's kept me, and I think that's what's going to keeping me in for the long haul.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a lot of the conversation in this last year or so has been almost strictly financial, right? And people talk about, oh, I'm in it for the community, but then as soon as things start going downhill in terms of the market and their NFTs go to zero or close to it, all of a sudden they're gone.
Right.
They're not around.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time you've spent on NFT Twitter, but it feels like a ghost town. And
Yep.
it's really unfortunate, but what it's done is start to weed out the people that were just here for the gold rush. And now it's left the people that want to continue to actually build. They believe in the technology. They want that impact, but also the people that are still here are even a tighter knit community and going to continue to grow tighter knit while we're in this downturn. So,
Absolutely.
what are your views on, I mean, what it is you're doing, whether it's personally or people that you know of, in terms of what can we do as a collective to continue building and moving this space forward, so it's getting more prepared to be able to handle a bigger adoption? Because I think ultimately that's what we need is more people to adopt the technology.
Absolutely. What I'm thinking is, and I'm with you 100%. I don't think it's just with NFTs. I think it's a lot of things in life, right? So if you look at, I'm a big basketball fan. and I know you play too. Um, but if you look at basketball, a lot of times there could be a good group of individuals that bandwagon, right? So if you look at the Milwaukee Bucks who won the championship, so okay, the Milwaukee Bucks, and then now that they're out, are the true fans stay, the bandwagoners leave and go to the next exciting team, beat the Celtics or the Warriors now. I find that the same with this NFT world, where I think the noise that at least I was hearing was, hey, check out this NFT. I bought it X, 10X, 11X, 3X, whatever. I'm making bags. Okay, great. Um, Nothing wrong with that, but I don't think that's sustainable over the long term, as we're now seeing. And for me, personally, with everything that's happening in the market, every time I open up Coinbase, I'm like, I hope to God that ETH drops again, is what I'm thinking. Because I want to keep stacking. I'm like, I open up Coinbase, I'm like, I hope Bitcoin keeps dropping, because I want to keep stacking. Um, and kind of the that mindset of, it's been shared by Kobe, by Michael. Their greatness doesn't happen when the lights are turned on. Their greatness is is developed, is built when the lights are turned off, right? It's when they're at their practice facility, when they're doing 500 jump shots, they're taking, 1,000 three-point shots. They're working on their left hand, they're working their right hand. It's when nobody's watching. It's where greatness is built. And what I'm excited about is really to see, as we get out of this, whatever people want to call it, recession, slump, whatever, as the market rebounds, is to then see the movement that happens individually, NFT projects, and the likes. And that's why for me, it's stacking, now buying different NFTs at the cheap on sale, in my opinion, but then also like looking at, or not truly understanding, because I don't know Gary personally, but just again having faith that he's seen this with the internet boom and the bust and what have you. And as he always says, I mean, he's running companies. So for me, it's exciting to see what he's going to come out with in the middle of this entire recession, whatever people want to call it. And so for me, that's what I'm holding on to. But again, with everything we're learning, only putting money I can afford to lose, right? So yes, hoping ETH drops every time I open up Coinbase, or so I could stack, hoping it all happens, so I'm stacking. But if the stack goes to zero, then okay, whatever, I'm fine. My family could still eat. We still have a roof over our head. We could still enjoy life. So from a personal standpoint, and what I'm hoping, and I'm still trying to figure this out, but I want to get more directly involved in this Web3 space. What that might look like, I do not know yet. I'm not a programmer. Can I do art? Yes, but it's not like I've been doing art the last 15 years looking for an outlet for the world to see. No, that's not me. Am I a financial guy? No, I'm not. So I'm still figuring that out, but definitely something I want to get more heavily in outside of just being an investor.
Yeah, I would love to poke on that a little bit because I find myself in a similar position where I'm not necessarily a financial guy. I'm creative in different ways, but not from an artistic standpoint, like in the traditional way. And I know there's a lot of people in the space feeling that way. We're all very passionate. We're still sticking around with Web3 and the technology involved, and we want to continue to get involved. So what are the things that you're doing at this point, even though you haven't quite gotten to the point where you're like, this is what I want to do? What are you doing in terms of that personal work to try and identify what place you can play in?
I'm spending, so post VFriend drop, literally every Twitter space I go into is VFriend specific. Um, VFriend's maxi, as they say. Now it's like I'm observing, I'm listening, Because what I think, at least for me, is I know when I hear it, or I'll know when I see it. That's why heading to NFT NYC, I'm glad it's not necessarily VFriends focused, even though I'm sure I'm going to see some VFriends, which would be nice. But exposing myself to other projects, other communities, connecting with people on a personal level. I think it will, the more I spend time in it, I believe it's going to happen. And why I say that is because even the work I do now, recruiting, nobody ever, ever, ever grows up and says, I want to do recruiting when I grow up. Nobody does, ever. Every recruiter I've spoken with, it's by accident. Somebody said somebody. It's never a plan. Oh, I've been doing this my whole life. It leads to being an executive recruiter. It doesn't. So for me, I just need to continually spend time in the space, keeping an open mind, spending time with different communities, not necessarily investing in all different projects because I don't want to do that because I have done that. And I'm sure we all have, right? We've got NFTs sitting in our MetaMask wallet that's like nothing, worth nothing, I should say. But for me, it's just spending time talking to people, absorbing, learning. I just think, like I said, for me, it's when I hear it, when I see it, I'll know it.
Sure. Yeah, and I think to your point, it's really critical to, I mean, it comes down to doing research and just spending time in the space, right? A lot of something that I've noticed over the last year, and I even struggle with personally, is having patience. Whether it's patience for something going up, patience for the long-term projects and what they end up rolling out from a utility perspective, and also patience in wanting to get into Web3 full time, right?
Right,
It just comes
right,
down to
100%.
spending the time, doing the research, and really, I mean, you're kind of forging your own path at this point because we're so early, which is a beautiful thing if you can have that patience, because at the end of the road, you'll end up doing something you'll really enjoy and really set yourself up for a life that you'll want to continue to build on. And that's what I think a lot of
100%.
people miss out when they don't have patience.
100%. And to be honest, my yearning to be more heavily involved in this space, I believe has to do with what I'm seeing other people do. And why I share that is the epiphany of me being in this space could be more of a hobby. It might be, I don't know. Or while all I'm doing is investing, buying NFTs, meaning maybe that's all I'll do is I don't know. So I'm keeping myself open, flexible as to what that might look like. Even though in my mind I'm thinking, man, I'd love to go all in, right? I'd love to be 100% Web3. It's fun, but would it allow me to provide for the way I'm providing my family? I mean, business fortunately has been good. We've been blessed that if we wanted to travel 4 or 5 months out of the year, we can. It's like not a problem. So it's also that dilemma of could I do that in Web3 100%? Have this freedom to truly do what I want, when I want, with who I want, whenever I want? I don't know. So it may be full time, it may be part time, it may be spare time, it may be I'm just investing. I don't know. But I want to just keep spending time in it, just to figure it out.
Yeah, and it comes
That's
down to
my plan.
self-awareness. Exactly. You got to understand what's important to you. What are the things that you're willing to give up if, like the trade-offs, right? Because there will always be trade-offs, positive and negative. And whatever
Right.
those opportunities come along for you, you have to evaluate that with your current situation and where your current career might be taking you and understand, okay, like this is what I want and I'm willing to give up these things in order to get this
Mm-hmm.
thing because I'll be happier in the long run.
for sure, for sure.
So as we're wrapping up, I would love to just know, there's a lot of unknowns in this space, and I think that's a big part of just spending time in it because we're always discovering new use cases for the technology. We're always on just there's still so much more we don't know about the blockchain and what it can really do, as we're all continuing to build the infrastructure phase. So, in the spirit of unknown, would love to get your take if somebody is trying to come into the space. Obviously, there's so much to learn, so much to catch up on. It feels like, and it's not necessarily the easiest space to get into. So, what is something that you would want to tell them that maybe wasn't told to you? Something that you wish you would have known when you first came into the space, or if you knew it and didn't do that thing, for example, like do your research. What is that you would want to share with them?
One thing I tell my in real life friends, but you're an in real life friend also, okay, right? So I'm not saying you're not, but you know what I'm talking about, right? There's just
Yes.
friends that are not in the space that's around us, our
Yes.
immediate circle. I mean, you got Ryan, so that's great. Um, and I got Stephanie now, so that's awesome.
Yes.
But one thing I tell, friends I ball with or different people, I'm like, you know what? There's hype, there's excitement, or was, in profits people are making. But I always tell them, you go out for a weekend, you go drinking, you party, whatever, right? You're dropping 50, 75, 100, $150 a night or a weekend. Why don't you just take that money, open a MetaMask wallet? I could show you how. Um, you know, go to a crypto exchange. I could show you how. Take that $50 and just experience what it would feel like to purchase crypto. Even $5 worth of ETH, right? So I forget who I was speaking with said, I think a friend of mine said, we're talking about Bitcoin, and he's not in the space at all. It's like, oh, so you have to buy like one Bitcoin. What is it now? It was a week or two ago, like 32,000 or whatever, or just under 30. I'm like, no, you could buy $10 worth of Bitcoin. And I think it would, and I tell him, I think it would just allow you to understand the mechanics. It would give you a feel, a flavor of how it works. That do your research, look at how the wallet operates, the technology. And I tell them I'm not a technology guy, so I could explain it to you very simply in layman's terms. But I think it would hold a lot more value if you took 10, 15, 25, $30, $50 that you were going to throw in, a couple of cocktails over a weekend and just see how it works. Just get a feel how it works. If you want really, really cheap NFTs, I'll quickly go in OpenSea and look at something that's like $30. Just so again you can get a feel, get a sense. And just kind of have them dip their toes in it, which I'm glad that myself and a large population had Gary and team walk us through this. But that is something that I always tell friends of mine who says, I don't know anything. Can you teach me more? I'm like, absolutely. I could share everything I know, but just take 10, $15 and do it.
Yeah. No, it's a very good point, and that's something that I mean, even me personally, when I've gone out and like tried to bring my IRL friends into the space because I'm very excited, I'm very passionate about Web3 and just wanting to brain vomit all of these like amazing things about the technology, and they're like, dude, I don't even know what MetaMask is, right? But what I always started telling people was you just have to experience it because
Yeah.
when you go and you buy your first piece of Bitcoin or Ethereum or any crypto, and then you go and take that and you successfully buy your first NFT, whether on secondary or you mint it, there's a feeling that comes along with that, regardless
Yep.
of what the financial upside or downside is. Just now that's yours, you own it, and that's a reason that a lot of people are attracted to the technology in the first place is because of that ownership piece.
Yep.
And it's just something that you have to experience firsthand. So that's great
Absolutely.
advice in terms of like a for good first step before we even talk about anything. Let's just throw a couple bucks in. You know, you were gonna spend it on drinks anyways. They're on me this time, and
Right. Right.
like go. Let's just get you through the process so you can understand the mechanics of it, and then we can start talking about like more in depth on the use cases.
Right. Because I think people. I'm not saying this is the only reason, but I think one reason people are hesitant is because they think it's clunky, which it is, because I believe it's going to
Yes.
be a lot more frictionless in the future. But just to set up, get crypto exchange, connect your bank, you gotta wait, MetaMask, da 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 da. But I also tell people I know it's like, look, you do $5, you get a feel, get a sense, and shit. As you hear more, learn more, get more into it, and all of a sudden there's this big rush to then get into a project or to get something. Now you know, right? Now you know. It may not be as fluid as you or I, because we do it almost on a daily, the
Right.
transactions. But at least now you know.
Awesome, John. Well, I know we're coming up on time. I really appreciate you hopping on. This has been so great and so valuable. I'm really excited to take a couple clips out of this and be able to share it with the world.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. And anything you need, man, I'm here.
Well, perfect. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we will talk to you soon.